Hi, all you Bald Beavers fans. What should we talk about? Anything big happen in the last few days? Oh, yes, you should watch my last video where somebody completely predicted this correctly. But we won't get into that. Or you can watch it again and see how it happened. To be serious, what actually happened was I predicted that Clinton would win the popular vote and Trump would win the electoral college, which is what happened. And I also predicted that the reason for this is because there was approximately a 7 million vote buffer over between California, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, then taking into account Texas. And what happened? It was actually about a 5.5 million vote buffer, and it looks like she's going to win the popular vote by about a 250,000, and Trump's going to win the election or the electoral college by, if he wins Michigan and Arizona, 306, I believe, electoral votes. So yeah, now you're going to have to live with it. And this is one of our bald beavers
No,
who
I'm
wants
not.
to.
And I remember the moment when we were watching the election, and the New York Times prediction slowly turned from, what was it, like 90 something percent. So the moment it went to 53% Trump, I was just completely mind blown because every single poll was 70% Clinton, 2 to 1. How could anyone think that she wasn't going to win based on what we've been told? And we had no reason before to question that the entire media was lying to us.
I thought it was a toss-up from after the second debate when he crushed her. Actually, it was during the second debate when he said because you'd be in jail line. That's when I knew he got it back. Because if he would have failed in that second debate, it was essentially over for him. Because that was when the whole Pussygate thing came out. And his campaign would have just been finished if he didn't pull it together.
Well, I think we should talk about first and foremost, like maybe the biggest reason why he won.
He won because of jobs, pure and simple. I mean, Michael Moore said it better than anybody else could have said it. He won because he was promising jobs, or at least a rebirth of the American dream in the Rust Belt states, and he won because of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Period. Mm-hmm. And so that's not even a white thing. That's just a lower middle class thing, which, I mean, most immigrants are in that class. So legal immigrants, are going to be as beneficiaries to that as anybody, theoretically.
And wouldn't you say one of the biggest themes this whole election was establishment, corruption, status quo, and how people are just kind of fed up with it? And Clinton was the complete embodiment of someone who'd been in politics her whole life.
Like, again, Michael Moore said, it would be the biggest FU that the establishment has ever seen. And as Michael Moore said, it would feel good. And I'm sure it did feel good to all of them that voted, because what's the establishment done for them? Like, what's the establishment done for the black community? It's the violence in the black community, at least in the inner city, has gone way up.
It really seemed like Clinton had overwhelming support, but that was just not the case.
They may have just skewed the polls, because I said in my last couple videos, every poll you look at, the sample size would be like +7, +9, +13 Democrats. And from what I understand, they weight those polls based on expected turnout, as well as turnout from the primaries, as well as what the polling for party registration previously.
They were just so wrong about it. So they either did have like a hidden agenda and it was corrupted, like Trump says, or they're just so out of the loop that...
The largest shareholder in the New York Times is the wealthiest man in Mexico, Carlos Slim Helú, I think his last name is. Owner of Washington Post is the owner of Amazon, Jeffrey Bezos. Both of those people have very good reason to want to turn attention towards Trump into the negative, and maybe even to poll negative. So it seems, we'll never know.
Seems far-fetched.
I doubt there will be a smoking gun. But just logic and sort of following the money trail seems to indicate that there would be some sort of corporate pressure to skew the results in one way to make it seem like there's momentum for Hillary.
A lot of people are kind of like, not kind of, they're terrified of what's going to happen. A lot of people are saying like, oh, we have a racist, a fascist, a Nazi, a literal Hitler running America now. Run for Your Lives, Run to Canada, Cal Exit, is it? Like they're freaking out, and like on one side I get it, but on the other side, like, does it need to be that dramatic, you know?
No, this is the logical result of the self-esteem generation, where everybody gets a trophy.
I don't know.
Everybody, you don't have marks anymore in school. You get a pass or a fail, so there's no rankings of anything. Nobody, they don't keep score in sports games. They have safe spaces. They're told that nobody should ever have their feelings hurt by anything. So when these kids grow up and get out into the real world and they start looking at elections, they essentially have this view that nothing that they think could ever be wrong. They don't know how to deal with it. It's just, I don't understand. How could I be wrong? There must be something really evil going on here. And then the Democrats, with the whole fascist, Trump is Hitler, whatever thing, the Democrats are at fault with that because they played it up. I mean, Hillary Clinton will go on and have a speech and with a stern look into the camera tell everybody that we cannot allow this man to become president.
Yeah.
We cannot allow this neo-proto-fascist to become president. And that's almost that's almost a golden ticket for somebody to do would you go back in time to kill Hitler?
I mean, I think the rhetoric against him and the rhetoric that he put out was on both sides very isolating for both Democrats and Republicans. Were never willing to listen again because they already wrote him off as being a sexist, misogynist, whatever.
Say, far progressive wing of the Democrats would be the first ones to say, well, unity, unity, unity. Mm-hmm. But you can't have unity when you're aggressively calling half of the people deplorable, or saying that anybody that votes for him is voting
like the
to
moment
give power to a
that
fascist.
She called them a basket of deplorables was a moment where no Trump supporter would ever come to the Clinton camp. I think a lot of his rhetoric, especially at the beginning, was very scary, and it still is. Like, I think saying that does the exact same thing. It's why there is so much division on both sides and so much isolation and people living in their own bubbles and just not even taking the time to understand the other perspective.
He was creating the frame that the election would play in. So he wanted to create the frame that the election plays in immigration, jobs, and trade. He's just like, we're going to build a wall, or we're going to monitor Muslim terrorists, and we're going to rip up trade deals.
He said a lot better than he said it.
That was all he said. That was all he needed, because you stay on that message. The people that she eventually lost the election because of, the Rust Belt workers who lost their jobs, they literally can't afford to care what a bakery in Tennessee is doing about gay weddings, because they got to pay their bills. So those issues, those are the divisive issues, because it takes away from the reality of what most of the electorate is facing.
Yeah, and I think a big failure of the Clinton campaign was that it wasn't really about policy. I mean, top of your head, like, how many of her policies can you really name? Because most of it was run on anti-Trump.
Her biggest policy was, I have a vagina.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, but, like, it showed in the polls, which I don't know about now, but, like, it showed every time Trump said something bad, her support went off. Like, her whole campaign was centered around vote for the lesser evil. And the lesser evil doesn't make people impassioned. It doesn't make people win lines. It doesn't send a lot of millennials to the polls.
What was her policy? Hillary's strength is always policy. She's great at that. She's highly intelligent and highly fluent in that.
But she didn't have the same catchy slogan. The most awkward chant I've ever heard was Hillary, Hillary. And it was never loud. It was never impassioned.
Whereas the Trump is more cacophonous, and it sort of gets a crowd going.
Yeah, like, there was one person who appealed to millennials, blacks, minorities, white, rural workers.
I don't think he appealed to blacks that much.
Yeah, that was Bernie. Bernie appealed to everyone, and even now it shows like he had such a better chance, but the system is just so corrupt. Like, super PACs, corporations, and media had already decided he was already going to be the first female president.
Bernie was essentially a left-wing progressive Trump.
No.
Well, in the sense of his anti-establishment, anti-bad trade
That's
deals,
the one
jobs, whatever.
common thing.
what I'm saying is, in the sense of like upsetting the establishment, they're playing the same foil, just from the opposite side of the spectrum. So obviously, the establishment isn't going to want to let him in. And as it turns out, with all that
He
came
never
out,
had a chance.
with all that came out about Trump, assuming it all still came out,
Mhm.
it would have been a lot more likely that Bernie would have been able to win.
I mean, like, people obviously they wanted someone real, right? That she practiced everything and, rehearsed everything except being fucking genuine, and being a real person. And if you wanted real, like Bernie, like decades ago, he was the one getting arrested for fighting for civil rights. And he came out for gay marriage before anyone else did. And she was the one who flip-flopped as soon as the popular opinion on something turned to 51% your mind. And not that you can't, but this was Bernie was somebody that stuck to something he always felt
to be
passionate
fair,
about.
Obama changed his mind on gay
That's
marriage when
true.
it became politically expedient to do so.
That's true.
In fact, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if Trump
He's a
was
politician
actually.
too.
I wouldn't be surprised if Trump was pro, or at least open to the idea of gay marriage before either Obama or Clinton were, because
He's a
lived
celebrity.
in, not so much that, because
New
he lived in
Yorker.
Manhattan his whole life. That's like the gay capital of the world, essentially.
A lot of people are assuming that he's 100% a traditional Republican, and in some ways he is. Like the scary things, such as being anti-abortion, like that's terrifying to me. I don't think he's as bad as people lead you to believe.
They painted him as the next Hitler. People are still saying, literally, next Hitler . Like, it's preposterous.
My biggest fear for him coming into office isn't what most people's biggest fears are, that he's going to kill gays or he's going to rape women in the White House. Like, from a policy standpoint, I fear for climate change, I fear for the Paris Agreement, I fear for the Iran deal, I fear for basically Obama's legacy, I guess.
What Trump has said, his exact speech on the topic was, "We went too light on them. The deal exists. I'm a guy that in my development business, I have to live by contracts. If Trump is already mending fences with Russia, I mean, Putin himself said he's ready to immediately restore full relations with the United States because of Trump.
A little beyond mending fences, according to the Clinton camp. Russia did it.
I mean, people say Trump doesn't have the focus to run campaigns or to read off a teleprompter properly. Yet for the last year and a half, he's been a secret Russian agent. Please, but
so you're saying he's stupid?
No, I'm saying it doesn't make sense for them to say one and the other at the same time.
I guess we'll see, right? Why don't you talk about climate change?
Well,
do you care?
Today on Trump's policy page, he said in his energy point, he said something to the effect of, "We're going to pursue all avenues with solar or renewables and fossil fuels to become a net energy exporter." But he also said that one of our biggest natural resources is our nature, is our environment, that we're not going to neglect that in order to pursue fossil fuels.
It's up to people to decide if they believe what's on his website written by his team or his blubbering yelling about how climate change is a hoax created by the Chinese.
So I guess that's our thoughts on after the election that everybody got wrong. If you watch my last video, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, we'll try and come up with more Bald Beavers videos with my head bald beaver.
What?
But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in, and if you want to, subscribe. Thank you.
Thanks.